In a game filled with all kinds of controversy and drama, it came down to one final possession for the Warriors on defense after Andrew Wiggins hit what appeared to be a game-winning three-point shot against the OKC Thunder at home. With 1.6 seconds left in the game and up by 3, all the Warriors had to do was don't let the Thunder shoot a 3 or foul before they can get any shot up. Honestly, Wiggins could have and should have fouled Chet Holmgren right here, as Holmgren wasn't even facing the basket yet at this juncture. But Wiggins allows Holmgren to take a step to his right, square up, then rise up over him to take and make the buzzer beater 3-point shot to send the game to overtime. Way to not foul while being up by 3, Steve. If there was ever a time to take that approach, it was here with less than 2 seconds left on the game clock. As you'll see soon enough, however, much bigger problems would wait for the Warriors in overtime. Welcome to Next Level Narrative. Let's get right to it. First play of the overtime starts with Curry dishing off to Chris Paul at the top of the arc, while Curry parks himself in the corner. Clay sets a screen for CP, OKC simply switches, which gives no advantage to the Warriors, so CP calls Looney over to set a screen. OKC once again switches, so CP takes a couple of stutter steps before stepping back for a mid-range over the outstretched arm of Holmgren and misses. I'm sorry, but shouldn't Curry be the one with the ball here? Wouldn't he be a greater threat against a big than CP? But okay, one possession down, a few more to go. Meanwhile, the Warriors essentially have 3 guys on the floor who may or may not get a stop. This is a defensively vulnerable group against all kinds of action. Personally, I would not finish a game with a tandem of CP, Curry, and Clay because CP is tiny. Curry is also pretty much tiny as a shooting guard at 6'2", and Clay is nothing close to a POA caliber defender at this point in his career after 2 catastrophic injuries that has turned him into a shell of what he used to be. On top of that, you have Wiggins, who is a tweener at power forward and can no longer persistently play POA due to a whole new set of responsibilities at a position that requires him to be more of a help defender, guard bigger players in general, although not against this particular matchup, and provide help in the paint as one of the primary rebounders, despite being a pretty poor rebounder even as small forward. The Warriors have 3 players completely out of position while playing next to a tiny point guard who basically has no protection behind him. Only a team who isn't serious about getting stops when the game matters the most would run a lineup like this. But let's see how it goes. Jalen Williams gets the ball at the top of the arc, Looney switches, Wiggins cuts off the driving space, so Williams finds Holmgren, who now has a post up against Clay. All things considered, this isn't the worst situation because Holmgren has the height, but not the size or strength to plow through anyone, and in fact, immediately takes a one-legged Dirk Nowitzki fadeaway that luckily rims out for the Warriors. Notice now that CP is trying to box out the much bigger Kenrich Williams, while Curry is also trying to box out the much bigger Lou Dort. This is ridiculous. Loon tried to crash, but the ball bounces away from him. Dort gets the offensive rebound and OKC resets. This is a horrible process, and this kind of thing persistently happens to the Warriors now because Kerr refuses to acknowledge these issues and continues to run out these tiny lineups that can't defend nor rebound. Now watch, as Wiggins is forced to run to a wide open Williams because Loon dove into the paint to rebound and is in no man's land. Williams dishes to a wide open SGA, who again luckily misses the wide open 3. You can't play this kind of defense and expect to get away with it too many times to close a game. Pay close attention here as Curry again is without the ball and looking to retrieve it from the corner, but Clay simply looks away, prompting Curry to put his head down in disbelief, disappointment, whatever you want to call it. He's not happy. Meanwhile, Clay gives the ball to CP, who dishes to Wiggins coming off the curl on the other side of the floor. Wiggins then dumps off to Loon for the split action, sets a screen for Clay, but it's a terrible one because, well, he's a small forward who isn't known for setting great screens like a normal power forward would. The screen was never positionally correct, and Dort easily gets around to stay in front of Clay. Clay elects to rise up anyway and chucking up a completely ill-advised shot with his defender right in front of him and 11 seconds still on the shot clock, and the shot barely grazes the rim. Is this why Clay looked off Curry to begin this possession? So that he can play hero and get the shot himself knowing what's to develop on the other side? Can't say for sure, but this is practically sabotage with the game slowly winding down. Due to the shot being way off, Looney is able to collect the loose ball before it goes out of bounds, and the Warriors luckily have a second chance opportunity. Curry finally gets the ball, drives to an open space, and elects for a dangerous behind the back pass to Klay in the corner that just misses Williams' hand. There's still 10 seconds on the shot clock, but Klay once again decides to shoot it anyway with a defender who couldn't be any closer to him than this, and burps up a ridiculous shot that airballs. If Klay is going to do a bunch of things that are detrimental to the team's offense and play selfish in this manner, then the Warriors have a serious problem, given that he's chucking bad shots while not at all being a reliable piece on defense, be it POA or rebounding. Curry is willingly playing off the ball, hoping his teammates would use some basic common sense and look for him first, since, he's by far their best shooter and scorer. But that's not what's happening when they run the motion with Curry off the ball, especially with the game coming to a close. This is the only team I know where the team's best player, who happens to be an all-time talent, is actively off the ball and not even being looked for by his lesser teammates who have been bricking shots left and right all season long. Is this on the players? Sure. But for Steve Kerr, their head coach, who is telling them to run this offense, to just stand there and make no commands for adjustments is simply insane. If you think this is an isolated situation, then stay tuned, because I'm going to expose many more games where this team closes games in this manner and get run out of the gym by other teams who are operating like a functional NBA team. Anyway, as always, like, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on the video so far. With that horrible shot, OKC is now in transition with numbers. The much smaller Curry goes for a reach around, but SGA gets around it. Wiggins stands and watches without much of a contest, and it's a layup. This unit is failing on both ends of the floor in every way you can imagine. The solution is simple. Stop closing games with CP, have Curry at point guard, his real position, Klay at shooting guard, put GP2 at POA, and suddenly you have a completely different formation on defense, while also automatically allowing Curry to be on the ball more as a primary ball handler. If you want to slant more towards a defensive unit, you could elect to go with the Curry, Moody, GP2, Wiggins lineup. And if you want to go bigger, you can even go with a Curry, GP2, Wiggins, Saric, Looney lineup. Sorry, but if Klay is going to sabotage the team the way he has, and if he isn't good enough defensively, it may be time to bench him whenever warranted. It's not about pride in history, it's about what's best for the team to have a chance at winning these games. Back to the action, Curry is finally on the ball, uses a screen from Wiggins to get to the DHO with Loon, but Loon pulls a Draymond, drives to the middle with the defense anticipating the DHO, sees SGA, and dishes to CP, who knocks down the open three from the corner. The ideal shot would have been for Curry, but at least Curry was involved in the play and created an advantage to help the team get a great shot rather than a contested one. Here, SGA uses a high screen from Holmgren, who pops, forcing Wiggins to try to recover. Holmgren fakes the three, drives down the middle, and draws the foul on Wiggins. And despite all the trouble, Holmgren only makes one free throw and keeps the game tied. Curry runs a high pick and roll with Wiggins, but again, Wiggins just isn't a good screener, as Dort kind of plows through him. Wiggins rolls and Curry gets him the ball, but due to the lack of spatial advantage created from the initial screen, Dort simply recovers back to Wiggins. Curry is motioning for Wiggins to pass to Looney for the DHO, but Wiggins holds the ball, so Curry uses Looney's screen to find an opening, but it's another half-ass screen that SGA easily gets around. Curry stunts and loses SGA by himself and cuts to the lane. Wiggins uses the Looney screen himself, but doesn't have the passing capability to thread the needle here, and elects to pull up and misses the shot. This is some disharmonious offense. Honestly, Curry really needs to get a shot at this point, so they could have run a simple DHO between Curry and Looney, which would give all the daylight Curry would need to get a shot up. Here Dort comes up to set a screen for SGA, and it's an immediate switch against CP. CP comes up early at an attempt to hard hedge so that Wiggins can recover, but Wiggins simply gets dragged away from the play by Dort, and CP is now left on an island against SGA, who drives to his right, gives a little shoulder bump, stops on a dime, and simply rises over the tiny point guard for the mid-range bucket. These are the advantages you give up to the other team when you go with tiny lineups without multiple POAs. Kerr is choosing to go this route,
but they truly don't have to because they have multiple defenders with more size available on their bench. Also, this is just poor defense by Wiggins, who made no attempt to fight over the screen, the same way Thunder players have been doing against Curry and CP. Here, Curry tries to run Chicago, but once again, Wiggins' screen is useless and a teammate once again looks Curry off and goes the other way for no good reason. Look at Curry's body language once again, as he helplessly looks on in disbelief. They run the same Chicago play on the other side with Klay setting the screen for CP as he comes up for the DHO with Looney. CP has a ton of space, but he's no Curry, and he's not taking this shot. They run the same split action once again with Klay dumping the ball off to Looney in the post as Curry looks on from the other side of the floor. Looney seems to kinda go rogue on this play as CP doesn't know what he's trying to do, kinda gets in the way, and Looney ultimately runs to Curry for the DHO, but Dort has Curry top locked, forcing Loon to go to Wiggins with 3 seconds left on the clock. Yikes. Wiggins forces his way to his right and throws up an air ball. The small ball stuff with Curry off the ball, this stuff has to go. It creates no offensive advantage, nothing easy to the basket, and the team is at a complete deficit defensively. When you realize these are the lineups that Kerr has been rolling out and this is the offense he's been using to close games, you can see why the Warriors were on their way to lose their 6th straight loss of the season. Don't get me wrong, a lot happened in regulation of this game to get to this point. But you can see how the team is systemically failing in so many different ways. Some argue that Curry should simply call off what Kerr wants on offense and demand the ball, but then he would pretty much have to do that every game, and if that's the case, why even have Kerr on the sidelines at all? What's the point of him exactly? Not to mention, if Curry is forced to break the offense their coach wants them to run, then he cannot miss at all, which adds unnecessary added tension and pressure, not to mention coming off as selfish somehow to his teammates, which he never has any desire to be. All of this would be so much easier if the coach actually did his job and demanded that they run an offense where his best player starts with the ball in his hands and stop compromising him by putting him next to a tiny point guard and a defensive liability at POA on top of that. Again, Kerr has refused to make these adjustments, and it's a huge part of the reason why the Warriors have suffered so much during this horrible losing streak. Believe me, the film breakdown of moments like this are far from over. I have a library of options to choose from, so stay tuned. Back to the action as OKC does exactly what I've been pleading the Warriors to do, which is to put the ball in their best player's hands and let him dictate what will happen, as SGA once again uses Holmgren's screen and this time gets a switch on Looney. SGA has been on the ball, has made a couple of shots, is in rhythm, and feels comfortable taking and making this mid-range over Looney, and the Thunder now have a 4-point lead. Very depressing if you're a Warriors fan. Curry goes to a simple pistol action by passing to CP, then flaring out using Looney's screen, sees the sliver of daylight, and finally launches a 3. Holmgren does his best to contest, but Curry knocks down the impossible 3. Hallelujah. The best scorer on the team finally got a shot up with 1.5 minutes left in OT. Meanwhile, OKC finally goes to something different with Jalen Williams looking to get involved. Dort once again comes to set a screen, hoping for a Curry switch on Williams. Curry hedges hard early in the same way CP did a few plays ago, but Williams fails to complete the switch by continuously dribbling towards Klay, instead of shifting to his right to force an ISO on Curry. Take a look at what Dort is doing. How is this not a moving screen? The guy is literally sliding his feet to continuously screen against Klay. That aside, Williams botches the switch, Klay is there, Williams drives to his left, Curry comes barging in to cut off the driving space, forcing Williams to give it up to Holmgren with the shot clock winding down. Great defense by Curry, and I'm glad I can finally compliment somebody on the Warriors for some useful defense in this OT, because, well, you've seen what's been going on. Meanwhile, CP is on an island against 2 white jerseys in the paint. Curry seizes and tries to recover and unintentionally cuts off Holmgren's driving space, which is pretty hilarious. Holmgren has no choice but to dish off to Dort. Curry recovers, but Dort goes straight to SGA, who, again, has been in great rhythm, drives to his left into the paint before fading away against Wiggins to hit a yet another mid-range. Very tough shot, but again, tough shots feel easier when you're in great rhythm with the trust of your coach and your teammates. Now, the Warriors are once again down by 3 with only a minute left in the game. CP sets a screen on Dort and OKC elects to switch, letting SGA guard Curry one-on-one. Mind you, Curry has basically had no opportunities to get into any kind of rhythm outside of one off-ball shot in the previous possession. He usually takes his time in situations like this, but perhaps feeling a little bit too eager, takes one dribble, crosses to his left, takes one more dribble before stepping back and pulling up for a 3, but SGA stays on top of the play and gets the block on Curry's shot attempt. Amazing defensive stop by SGA, but I hope you can see why the Warriors ended up in this situation to begin with. If you're watching this with an untrained eye, it's easy to just blame Curry for not coming up clutch, regardless of any and all circumstances. But this channel is called Next Level Narrative for a reason, and we are not doing that here. Rhythm is a fundamental key for any player, whether your name is Curry, MJ, Bird, or any other superstar name that you can think of. And if they've been ignored for just about all of overtime, then they're just not going to be in a natural state of flow. Can you imagine a team running this kind of offense when you have an MJ or a Bird, by the way? I certainly can't. So I really can't understand for the life of me how or why Kerr thinks any of this is okay. And now, watch here as SGA gets out in transition and the tiniest guy on the floor can only do so much to stop this layup attempt, giving the Thunder a 5-point lead with under a minute left in the game. In what would be the Warriors' final possession to keep it a one-possession game, CP has the ball, of course, giving Curry no opportunity for any kind of redemption. Instead, Wiggins comes up from the corner and takes a 25-footer that rims out. Loon gets the offensive rebound and dishes to Klay, who once again launches an ill-advised 3 with a hand in his face for another miss. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is game. To summarize, Warriors had 10 possessions to work with in overtime. Curry was sporadically on the ball 3 times and took 2 shots, made 1. Klay took 3 ill-advised shots and missed all of them. Wiggins took 4 shots and missed all of them. And Chris Paul took 2 shots and made 1 for a total of 6 points and 5 minutes of overtime play. This is the quote-unquote team basketball that makes Kerr so happy, but the end result was pretty horrendous. His best player never got into any kind of rhythm, while Klay and Wiggins chucked away and combined to go 0 for 7 from the floor. Meanwhile, OKC shot 9 times and scored 13 points, 10 of them by their star player SGA. Dear Steve Kerr, please have some shame. Learn from your mistakes, stop playing Curry out of position at the 2, and then have him play off the ball for a majority of crunch time while still expecting him to be flawless the rare times he does get to attempt a shot. You're using Curry like his name is Steve Kerr. His name is not Steve Kerr. Stop using him like it. And then you surround him with a completely suboptimal defensive unit incapable of getting stops with any regularity, which is completely unserious for a team that claims to be gunning for a championship. These are manufactured problems created by you, Steve, that don't need to be happening at all because you prefer the ball being touched by everybody over a more simple offense that requires the ball in the hands of your best player more. There's a reason Curry gets paid more than anybody else on this team. For the love of God, give him the chance to show why. In an earlier loss against Minnesota, Curry said in a post-game interview that the team can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results. Yes, Steve, he's talking to you and asking you to make adjustments. It's been 17 games and the team is 8-9 after starting the season 5-1, which means they've since gone 3-8, including a 6-game losing streak in which 5 of the losses came from home, which has never happened since the championship run began. Until you make necessary fundamental changes in the way this team plays the game of basketball, these struggles will not stop anytime soon, even with the pending return of Draymond from his 5-game suspension. If these nonsensical problems persist and the team continues to struggle for reasons that are purely manufactured by your egotistical decisions that are hurting the team, then you are truly no longer fit to coach this team. Because Curry, his teammates, and the fans deserve better than this. We're all here to watch the greatness of Curry, not to watch him constantly having to overcome the goofy decisions you make for this team. If you've come this far, I truly appreciate you going through this rant session with me. But if you're a fan of basketball, I hope some of this stuff comes off as common sense to you as well. Stay tuned as plenty more content is coming your way. Thank you so much for watching. I see the growth of this channel and the support you have shown, and I can't be grateful enough. Until next time.